Well, good morning. My name is State Representative Ryan Spain. I represent the 73rd District in the Illinois House. It has been 1 week now since the ComEd 4 verdict was delivered, and here we are again. And the reason we're here again is to emphasize the need for ethics reform in the state of Illinois, and specifically to ask the question, where are the Democratic leaders in the General Assembly and in our state government, and what are they doing on the topics of ethics reform? I just listened to remarks from the governor upstairs talking about the legislative process and how it works, and that there are committees that could be doing work on issues for cleaning up corruption in our state government. Many of us serve on one of those very committees, the Ethics and Elections Committee in the Illinois House. Luckily, we had a hearing yesterday in the Ethics and Elections Committee that I was looking forward to, because I thought surely 1 week after the ComEd 4 verdict, and in anticipation of the Mike Madigan trial that we're coming upon in the next year, surely this will be the time, for the first time this spring, where we would begin to consider ethics initiatives in the Ethics and Elections Committee. What did we do in that committee yesterday? We took subject matter testimony on voting by jail, allowing convicted felons to vote while they're serving their sentence in prison. This is the Keep Mike Madigan voting program, essentially, that must be important as a priority for the Democratic leaders here in the General Assembly. Where are the leaders, and what are they doing on the topic of ethics reform in the state of Illinois? We have just over 1 week to go in session, and we are not doing anything on this key and critical topic, one of the most important topics at the most important time in the history of the state of Illinois. This is not something that should be conducted in the last second of the legislative session. This is not an area where Democrats should attempt to feign some interest in sunshine while negotiating an ethics package in the dark of night. We have seen what happens when Democrats take actions in dark rooms delivering gerrymandered maps and political corruption. It has to stop. We cannot continue to have business as usual here in the state of Illinois. Again, it has been 1 week since the ComEd verdict. What has happened here in our state government? Today we saw that a former Democratic legislator left prison and is now working here as a lobbyist. That has happened in the last week. We've seen actions taken by Democratic leadership to expel one of their members from a leadership team for disruption, but there's no action taken for corruption. In fact, the Speaker of the House, it is worth reminding you, was the chairperson of the Special Investigating Committee looking into and examining the conduct of Mike Madigan while he was in office, and now Speaker Welch is the person who swept all of those allegations under the rug, made comments that the activities investigating Speaker Madigan were a stunt, were a political sham, and he promptly shut those investigations down. That's a conflict of interest. We see far too many conflicts of interest here, and we see far too little Democratic leaders stepping up and taking seriously the issue of public corruption that plagues our state of Illinois. For more information on that, I'll turn it over now to our Republican floor leader, Representative Patrick Windhorst.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm Patrick Windhorst, State Representative in the 117th District, which is all or part of 10 counties in southernmost Illinois. Recently, United States Representative Sean Casten called out former Speaker Mike Madigan, asking for him to resign his position as a Cook County Democratic Committee person, and added that public service is a sacred trust. I couldn't agree more. Madigan should resign, and we should be actively working to enhance anti-corruption laws in Illinois. Congressman Casten is the highest-ranking Democrat in our state to call for significant change and to not accept the status quo of the Madigan era. I was here last week after the 4 guilty verdicts were delivered, making the case that we need ethics reforms that would help stamp out corruption in our state. In my remarks shortly after the verdicts, here's what I said. We believe legislators shouldn't be lobbyists. We believe in halting the revolving door. We believe in empowering the Legislative Inspector General with subpoena powers so that the office may perform thorough corruption investigations and root out bad behavior. Yesterday, in this very room, we heard from former Democratic Governor Pat Quinn on this same topic. Governor Quinn knows we need change. Representative Caston is calling for change. So the question is, where are the House and Senate Democrats on ethics reform? What is it going to take? How many more elected officials need to be arrested or imprisoned or strike a plea deal with the federal government before the Democratic leaders and rank and file members will wake up and get to work? We don't need a special session. House Republicans are already sponsoring a long list of bills that could pass this General Assembly in the remaining balance of this session that would begin to address the culture of corruption that continues under this dome. At this time, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Representative Amy Ellick.
Good morning. I'm State Representative Amy Ellick from the 111th District in Madison County. Illinois is plagued with corruption, and the recent ComEd 4 verdict tied to former House Speaker Mike Madigan reaffirms what has been wrong with our state government for decades and further proves why we shouldn't provide a perk to lawmakers indicted for corruption. Under current law, Madigan will continue to collect a taxpayer-paid pension until a guilty verdict is reached. This means Madigan could go on to collect his elected official pension for several years before it's taken away upon a guilty verdict or a plea deal. That's why I've filed legislation to suspend a lawmaker's pension if they are charged with corruption by federal investigators. My bill, House Bill 1277, will take away a lawmaker's pension while awaiting the outcome of a case so that no perks are offered to a politician when they are indicted for corruption. As a public official, you carry a heightened responsibility to the public. While public trust has been diminished, one way that we can hold on to that trust, even when it's betrayed by bad actors, is to withhold taxpayer-funded pensions. Other states already do this. The clock is running out in Springfield. We are quickly approaching our last week of the legislative session. We have a number of other proposals. Over the last few years, we've offered many solutions, and many of these they're all stuck in rules. Any one of those proposals are solid efforts our caucus has put forward to move the needle on ethics, to restore public trust, and to improve government. But the effort has been ignored, and paired with a lack of urgency by the Democrat majority, even when presented with a major reminder in federal court last week, is only a further disservice to taxpayers. Today, I'm here with my colleagues to present an opportunity for change, a solution to a clear problem we have here in Illinois, a path forward without the stain of corruption. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague, State Representative Blaine Willauer.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you guys for being here today. State Representative Blaine Willauer, South Central Illinois. You know, everybody knows that the corruption in this dome is rampant. It's been that way for a long time. It's embarrassing. It's immoral. But what we don't talk about enough is how this affects everyday citizens, average citizens in the state of Illinois. You know, look, this is a great state. Illinois is the best state in the country. We have everything that we need to be able to be a economic power in this state to you know, provide good jobs and good wages for the citizens of the state. But the way that we do business here in the State House, it limits the average citizen's ability to be able to exercise their full potential. You know, too much politics by the special interests for the special interests really limits our ability here. That's what we need to be talking about in this state. We do not do anything to limit the power of the political class in this state. Bad policies have basically driven this state into the ground. We see it in our own communities. Good jobs are leaving. They're not leaving because Illinois doesn't have the resources that it needs. They're leaving because of poor public policy that puts the interest of the corporations, the lobbyists, everybody in front of the regular folks in the state of Illinois. So we have been hammering this for years. We've got numerous bills out there that would expose and eliminate conflicts of interest, that would empower the watchdogs that are supposed to be watching over this place to ensure that we're doing the people's business. We've got multiple things out there, and we've had them out there for years. The only reason that it doesn't get done is because the Democrats that have run this place for a generation don't want to do it. And, you know, I think that we need to start asking why. You need to start asking why. And I think that at the end of the day, the only answer that makes sense, especially in light of all the arrests, everything that we've seen, is that it's not in their best interest to do so. And that needs to be exposed. We need to be talking about that, and that's why we're here today. So with that, I think we'll take some questions.
What law could have stopped the ComEd 4 from doing what they were convicted of doing?
Dave, thanks for that question. In addition to what law, I think what we have to look at are what rules enabled the ComEd 4 to do what they did, to bribe and influence the Speaker of the House in order to achieve a very significant outcome for their company with $4 billion in benefit to ComEd. The way it happened is all written here in this rule book. This is the rule book of the 101st General Assembly. It's the same rule book that we have right now in the 103rd. It's Mike Madigan's rule book. And the rules allow the Speaker to exercise and wield so much power, so much unilateral power, that members have no understanding of what type of bribes or backroom deals are being offered in exchange for legislation advancing or legislation being sent to the Rules Committee and killed. And so the rules of operation here need to change significantly.
Well, those were the guys that were convicted, though. They're not lawmakers. One was a lawmaker, I mean, before one or two of us was born. How would that have stopped them from saying, well, our friend is going to get mad? Well, you know who is on the phone? Oh, I better answer it. I mean, it seems like nothing we've heard so far would put their fingers on the actual ComEd 4.
I think, again, and if anyone else wants to jump in, I would just emphasize that we've created a system here in Springfield, and that's why we really need comprehensive attention on anti-corruption measures, on ethics reforms, so that no one person can wield so much unilateral power that they can abuse it against the greater good and against the public trust. And that's what Madigan did, and what 4 people now have been found guilty of being complicit in that type of scheme. And the way that it works, when you have one person that exercises this outsized unilateral control, making that one person happy above anyone else in the entire state government, including Governor Quinn, who was here and vetoed legislation, which was overridden by the legislature, enabled by the rules of Mike Madigan, all to curry favor with Speaker Madigan.
It seems that Democrats' leadership, even the governor saying this morning, that there's already things that are on the law books and these people were found guilty of. I remember even former Senate President John Cullerton saying that whenever, I can't remember which lawmaker it was that was indicted at that time, but yeah, it's hard to keep track. So I mean, your response to that idea of, hey, there's already things on the books that people are being charged and found guilty.
Well, I think one of the comments that I read from one of the jurors encapsulates things pretty well. We've created such a culture around. I say we had nothing to do with it, but just the culture around here has got to the point that there's no accountability. And to paraphrase that juror, they said that these people believe they could do whatever the hell they want, and clearly they did. Clearly they do. So. Yeah, putting the policies in place, basically, number one, they shine a light on some of this stuff. It starts to change that culture where people actually start to think about the fact that there's going to be some accountability around here. I mean, if we empowered the legislative inspector general with the ability to independently do subpoenas, That'd change a lot of things. I mean, that would certainly be something that would be in the lawmakers' minds. They'd be in the lobbyists' minds, and you start to change the culture of how we do business, how we look at how we do business around here. And I think at the end of the day, you're never going to put a law in place that's going to stop criminal behavior. The idea is to put things in place, to put some guardrails and safeguards in there to actually expose some of this stuff.
I want to jump in on that too. I think it's a good question, Greg. And we cannot, none of us, no one should accept as a reasonable outcome a narrative that the system worked. Okay, 4 people who were involved in a corrupt bribery scheme have been found guilty. Mike Madigan will see his day in trial sometime next week. The system is working. That's outrageous. That is unacceptable. The system created an outcome where a $4 billion benefit was delivered to a large corporation, and the legislative process was corrupted and maligned to deliver favors and certain outcomes. That is outrageous. And so that's what we have to begin changing. Okay, these 4 people have been found guilty. Madigan, will see what happens with him. But we have an obligation to change the way that things work here in this building. And we can't accept as a reality that if something goes wrong here, the courts will take care of it eventually. We have to be held to a higher standard in this building as people who are elected on behalf of the citizens of the state of Illinois.
Should there be controls on who can be a legislative leader, but also who controls campaign funds? I mean, Madigan had 4 funds that he controlled, tens of millions of dollars. I think he's probably still dipping into that to pay for legal fees, but that nexus of power, being the House Speaker and also controlling those political funds, that right there is, gives somebody an immense amount of power. Should there be controls on that?
I think there should be controls, and we need to look as part of anti-corruption measures, look into campaign finance reform. It's something that Governor Quinn talked about yesterday. But when you have a legislative leader, and I looked at the disclosures for Speaker Madigan. I think he has about $9 million remaining, at least in the 2 easily available accounts that I can see. That's a pretty great legal defense fund. And if you have that cushion in your back pocket, does it embolden you to take measures that would otherwise not be appropriate? I think the answer is it's definitely maybe. And in the case of Madigan, it sure seems to be yes. So I think that all of these things come together. And again, I think it's why Governor Quinn says we need to be able to allow citizens to initiate ethics reforms with greater frequency. We don't allow that in Illinois through ballot referendum, and that should be something that changes because we should always be looking to improve and hold our elected officials to the highest ethical standard.
So, with regard to the rules, I mean, obviously Speaker Madigan wielded power like, an incredible amount of power. That's why he was a record-breaking legislative leader in the U.S. We just happen to have him here. And to Greg's point, I mean, the person, not just the speaker, but also can hold the DPI. This is a unique person. He's gone though. So are you saying that, Speaker Welch is acting in ways that are concerning to you, or is this, a deterrent? I'm not really seeing the connect between, changing the rules and, changing the past because again, he's gone.
I cannot let it stand that then Representative Chris Welch was appointed as the chairman of the Special Investigating Committee and was rewarded for his actions by shutting down that bona fide investigation with becoming Speaker of the House with the full blessing and endorsement of Mike Madigan. And I don't think that is right. And I don't think we should accept that outcome. And so in future rule modifications, if we're going to look for not just allowing the courts to police the conduct of legislators, if we're to have some internal review of how we hold ourselves to high standards, we have to examine the way that now Speaker Welch conducted and chaired the Special Investigating Committee, because it sure didn't work. And to sit now and look back at his comments saying, this is a stunt, this is a show, this is a sham, I hope he would repudiate those comments now that we've seen the verdict in the ComEd case.
And Representative Alec, your proposal to suspend the legislators, is it just pension or also pay if
The bill relates to pensions.
When indicted, I mean, how does that not run afoul of the Fifth Amendment and also, you know, the Illinois Supreme Court ruling in 2015 that said, without a doubt, pension benefits cannot be diminished or impaired?
Sure, so the bill suspends the benefits, and if the person is not ultimately charged or accepts a plea deal, they are refunded their pension payments that would have been paid with interest. So I think if we're discussing how this works, let's get in a room together and discuss it. Happy to take up those conversations, and let's figure out a way that we can stop rewarding lawmakers that are charged with, you know, public corruption crimes with their lucrative pension. My constituents are asking for this. They don't think it's fair that he could be on, you know, under indictment for a few years before there's any consequence to anything. So, you know, responding to my constituents and citizens throughout the state of Illinois saying, we see that this isn't fair. Let's get in a room and discuss it, and we'll figure out the best way to move forward with this.
Leader Spain, at the beginning of this news conference, you said, I went to the Ethics and Elections Committee meeting, and I was looking forward to all the ethics bills that they would introduce and that they would run, and they didn't. Really? That's gotta be one of the most disingenuous things I've heard today. You actually expected something?
I remember, Dave, when this committee was created in the last General Assembly, I asked to serve on it. I had the opportunity to be the ranking member and Republican spokesperson. I continued in that role for this General Assembly. I really hope, and I have respect and appreciation for the chairman of that committee. I really hoped and would have assumed, given everything that's going on with public corruption and a high-profile trial taking place in the Northern District here in Illinois, that yes, absolutely, we would be considering a myriad of ethics reform proposals. Just like Representative Ellick just said, I have an idea related to pension. Let's talk about it. Let's convene witnesses, examine amendments and different ideas for that bill. We've done none of it. We have not had one subject matter hearing on any issue related to ethics so far this General Assembly, and I'm beyond disappointed by that.
You act like it's a surprise.
It's so sad in the state of Illinois that we may not be surprised. I mean, and I just think that's a sad comment and reflection on our state. And I think it's one of the things that really was instructive from public comments from the jurors in the ComEd 4 trial, that they were intent on sending a message to the people here. All of the legislators, 177 people that are here right now, that should be getting the message that this is unacceptable, and that citizens have taken notice, they'll be taking stock, and they'll be demanding change. So we need to get to work.
Democrats have closed-door working groups on everything from guns to the budget. What can you guys do to, I don't know, have closed-door, open-door Republican working groups and have these conversations like official committees, but not official committees, of course? I mean, is that an option here that you guys could do to elucidate what these problems are and to have those conversations in the public?
Sure, we've had working group meetings on a variety of topics and continue to. I would also go back to our Reimagine Illinois program where we went through and vetted a whole bunch of different bills on a different set of topics, and ethics was one of those. So yes, we can and will continue to do that.
Thanks, everyone.